Practicing medicine without insurance is possible. Imagine a private practice where you get to see your best patients every day, providing medical services you truly enjoy, all without the hassle of insurance. My name is Dr. T. Nguyen, and I'm a recovering specialist who was completely burned out from insurance-based medicine. I pivoted into direct care, where patients pay me directly for my medical services and have never looked back. If you're a private practice owner or planning to become one who's looking to be free of the grind of insurance and you're craving simplicity, efficiency, and connection with patients, you are in the right place. This podcast will help you map out your exit plan and uncover the mindset needed to thrive in today's economy. Welcome to the Direct Care Podcast for Specialists. Welcome back. If you are a business owner, you find yourself stuck, overwhelmed, it might be because you don't know what your working genius is. So let's get into that. And if you're wondering when I was going to invest in a new mic, well, today is the day. I am currently recording with a new mic. And so I'm hoping the sound is much more clear and less distracting than prior recordings. I had previously used my AirPods, and sometimes I would use like those small lavalier clip-ons, but it was very sensitive to sound. So I'm hoping this little upgrade will improve your hearing experience throughout this episode. So let's get into what I'm talking about today, the zone of genius or working genius, two slightly different but similar concepts. Now, this is not an original topic of mine. It will be referenced down in the show notes so you can dive deeper into it. But within the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to help you understand why this is such an important topic for you to understand about yourself and about your team, especially if you're looking to expand and get more help. Now, as business owners, I know that many of us have just decided to be the one to do everything. And we don't even care if we're good at it. We just know that things need to be done and then know that we are on a budget to get those things done. Right? In the beginning of our practice, as we are growing, we may not have a lot of flexibility as to how we spend our money. So we're very careful about how we spend it, always ensuring that there's going to be a return on investment. But sometimes what we don't realize is that we might be taking up work that we are just not that good at. And so instead of spending money, we end up spending time. And I saw a saying about how we all spend time as if there's an unlimited amount, but it's the only thing we spend in which we never know what's remaining in the balance. Something to think about. So, business owners, we find ourselves buried in our work because that's just what we do. We do everything. And at some point, we get to the point where things are just getting too exhausting to think because we're constantly making micro decisions every day, every moment, not just at work, but also at home. The age-old question that often leads to arguments is, what do you want for dinner, right? I know that was me years ago. So I didn't realize my autoclave was running in the back. I thought that was done with. But if you hear beeps, that's what that is. I'm recording in my office. I have no sound protection. You're going to hear traffic. You're going to hear kids screaming. Welcome to the show. So anyway, we are business owners who find ourselves buried in our work. We end up finding ourselves very exhausted. Our mental capacity is depleted. We get irritable at the end of the day. We have a lot of decisions to make, micro decisions to make in our business. And then we come home to a question of, what do you want for dinner? Right? It's annoying. And these little micro annoyances does stack up. And it either causes you to have a total blowout or withdraw. And for me, it's mostly withdraw most of the time. So I just kind of curl up in my room, lay in bed for 12 hours straight. That's how I cope. So it's not healthy, right? I recognize that. But I'm going to help you through that because your business is supposed to work for you. You're not supposed to be buried by it. And the only way to really know how to get out of this funk is to recognize and accept that there are things you are really good at, things that give you energy, while there are other things that you're not so good at that drains your energy. So let's figure that out. Sometimes when we don't have the bandwidth to think strategically, we just do everything. We end up becoming very hyper vigilant, right? We say things to ourselves that might not be true, such as things just cannot be done fast enough. right? When you assign someone else a task, it's like, it's not fast enough. It's not good enough. The heck, I'll just do it myself. I don't want to stress trying to teach somebody else over and over again, right? I will just do it myself. Does that sound familiar at all? If so, congratulations. Welcome to business ownership, right? Here's the thing. If you don't want to be buried in your work, there are things you need to let go of, such as the need to control, the need to do everything on a budget. To think that you can't afford it is really trapping yourself in a place of going nowhere. And so at some point, you're going to have to let go of the need to control and predict the future and have a little bit of faith, a little bit of trust that you will figure things out. But you don't have to figure everything out. There are a ton of resources out there of people who are experts at what they do, at the thing that you don't like doing. So, for example, if you're spending 3 hours working on a logo, you as a physician just spent $1,500, right? If you are charging $500 an hour and you spend 3 hours on a logo in which you're not an expert at designing, right? It takes more brain energy. It takes more time. You're kind of fussing with the color, this tweak, that tweak there, right? Whereas if you were just to give it to an expert who does this every day in and day out, they understand the market, they understand your niche. You hand it off to them, they charge you $250. You would have saved yourself, what is that, 2.5 hours now, right? So you're either going to spend time or money. And I think the older we get, the more we realize we don't have a whole lot of time left. So it's time to act like a CEO and make CEO decisions and learn how to delegate. But before you get into that, let's learn about yourself. What is your working genius? So where did this come from? I was listening to a business podcast who had this author as a guest. And that's when I realized that a lot of my disappointments, exhaustion, lack of growth had everything to do with me not doing my best work all the time, right? I'm not doing all the work that energizes me. It's not to say I shouldn't be doing certain things at some times, but if I'm constantly consumed in doing work that I'm not that good at, then that leads to a pathway of burnout because then I'm just working to work, right? But that's not why we own a business. We own businesses to give us some kind of freedom. Now, that could be financial freedom, time freedom, creative freedom, flexibility, right? Whatever it is for you, think about what that means to you if you didn't have that anymore. It's like that saying, we left the 9 to 5 job so that we can work 24/7 in our business. It's kind of a joke, kind of not, right? And so you can either be consumed with your work or you can think about it a little bit better, a little bit smarter, and buy back your time by understanding what your working genius is. So let's get into why it's so important to understand what yours is. Once you know what your working genius is, then you'll be able to build a team to fulfill the other gaps. So what does that really mean? It means that once you know all the players that need to be there, you can maximize your job fulfillment, you can increase your productivity, which increases your bottom line. You can build effective teams, you can lead better meetings, you can improve your hiring process. Ultimately, you get to boost morale once you start getting the hang of who to hire and figuring out all the pieces in between. So this framework comes in 2 flavors. One of the books by Gay Hendricks called The Big Leap, and the other one is by Patrick Lencioni. I apologize in advance if I pronounce that wrong, but he wrote the book, The 6 Types of Working Genius. These are 2 books that will be down in the show notes for you to go over in depth. But in the remaining time that we're here, I'll break it down for you so that you can get an idea of where I'm taking you, and maybe you'll get a sense as to what your working genius is, and then recognize which ones are missing in your business and then start hiring for that position. So the first one, wonder. The working genius of wonder are those who love to ponder possibilities. They ask questions like, what if? And they are looking for unmet potential, or they can identify unmet potential. These are the big thinkers of the world. The second one is discernment. These are individuals who can instinctively evaluate ideas and intuitively have an inner knowing as to what will work and what won't. Now, the third one, galvanizing. These individuals get energy from bringing people together. They are rallying people, they can motivate, they can inspire, and push people towards action. There's enablement. These are individuals who thrive by helping others and supporting others' ideas and initiatives. The fifth one is tenacity. You feel satisfaction from pushing projects to completion. So having things hang around not completed drives you insane. And maybe this is the type that likes an Excel worksheet or a to-do list or a project manager calendar, a checklist of sorts. These are individuals who really like to hit the goals and they finish well. And lastly, the sixth type of working genius is invention. These are people who enjoy creating original ideas and solutions from scratch. They like a blank slate. They enjoy the challenge of building something new. So after going through the six types of working geniuses, maybe you've already picked up a couple that you can identify with and the others that you're like, that's absolutely not me. And I'll share with you what mine are. So the top three tendencies that I have or working geniuses that I have include wonder, which is no wonder that I have this podcast. It's always, what if things were possible, right? I totally enjoy that landscape. There is also invention. I enjoy creating original ideas and solutions from scratch, right? That's fun for me and that's terrifying for others. And the third one, I think I'm more towards the discernment where I can instinctively evaluate a situation or an idea and just have an inner knowing or an intuition or a pull as to whether something will work. Now, I really don't know how scientific this is, but it can give you an idea as to what your tendencies or working strengths are so that the other gaps can be filled in by people who you hire and then you delegate that work to. So an example of that, right now I need somebody to pull through and finish my projects because I got lots of ideas, okay? I've got lots of projects on my project board right now. I'm using Trello to try to organize all of my different things. I've got my clinical practice, I've got this podcast, I've got the coaching program, I am teaching residents and students things. There's like a whole bunch of stuff I'm doing because I enjoy it. But then there's the follow-up that's a little bit challenging when there's a lot of different tasks. And so knowing that I need somebody with tenacity to figure out where I'm at, what needs to be done on a timeline, on a checklist is actually on my to-do list. So I am on a lookout for a type of project manager who can read data, who can close the loop, and can finish really good. Bring these projects to life by completion. And that person is going to love this job. And that person is also not me. And so knowing what I need and just completely suck at is invaluable because that means I can find somebody else who's better at it, who enjoys it, and then give them a job to do. So as you can imagine, there is the zone of working genius, which is what I'm sharing with you here. It gives you energy. You love doing it. It feels like time has flown by when you're absorbed in the work that you love doing. Now, there is also a zone of excellence where you're probably good at certain things, but it doesn't really give you energy. And I think a lot of doctors fall into that bucket where we're just kind of forced or conditioned or trained to just do everything with excellence. Whether you like it or not, the culture does not care. You just do things in excellence. And then the last category is the zone of competence. You can figure stuff out, but it drains you. You hate the job. I'll share with you a job that I super hated. When was this? Was it high school or maybe after? I took a job to sell makeup. And at the time, this was the type of job that everybody did. It was retail. It was the easiest and most accessible job. You apply, you get paid hourly. And it wasn't until I showed up on the first day that I was like, bad idea. I already hate this. Why? I hate sales. I don't like makeup. And the people who showed up were people who just wanted free stuff, right? And all three of those things annoyed the bejesus out of me, right? I was not feeling very creative. I don't feel like I had any place to grow because I hated level one of this job. And of course, every day I showed up was, you're not selling enough of this or you're not doing enough. And then I would get pulled aside and be like, your job is to sell. And I was like, yeah, I know that. And unfortunately, I hate that. So anyway, I didn't know it back then, but I see it so clearly now that I am not good at retail. And I don't know why I didn't think that there were other types of jobs out there for me. But anyway, it's good to know what you're good at and good to know what you're willing to tolerate to make ends meet, right? Because sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But then you also need to know what are the things that are draining you, that are aging you much faster, because there's a limit to what we can tolerate. And now that we've got lots of choices, we should be able to choose wisely and spend our time better and make sure that we do work that aligns with our values and gives us energy, which then in turns increases your bottom line. Because ultimately, that's what we all desire, right? As business owners, we want to do good work. We want to enjoy the work that we do. And then we also want to get paid for that. And it all comes together when you are working in your zone of genius or working genius. It's what you're good at, is what we're focusing on here. So there's a couple of reasons why I can speculate as to why doctors tend to operate outside of this area of genius. And I kind of touched on it briefly just a second ago, where our medical training really emphasizes excellence and competence. They can care less about the creative abilities or the passions that you have, because we have metrics to meet, we have exams to take, right? And so it's just built into our medical training. You do want an excellent and competent surgeon and doctor, right? But it doesn't really leave a lot of room for creativity, because how do you measure creativity? That's pretty hard, right? The system also rewards endurance, right? So the more hours you can work, the more you can bill, the more patients you can see, the more it generates money for the system that you're in. And oftentimes that's not an energy alignment for many of us. And I can say that for myself because I did that and it sucked, but I tolerated it and I was competent, like enough, but I wasn't my best version of myself, which is how I ended up crashing out and leaving and deciding that I'd rather just open my own business to work on it 24/7. So all of that just to say, this ends up leading to burnout for many of us, right? We look like we're succeeding on paper. We've got the certifications, we've put in the hours, we've got the accolades. But at the end of the day, a lot of us are drained and we're kind of resentful, and we're hiding some of that, right? And you don't see that on social media because people pick and choose what they display online. So you just never really know what an individual is experiencing. So they may have all of the certifications, but deep down inside, if they're not working in alignment, they're miserable. And that does age you a lot faster. And then, of course, burnout. Now, in direct care, you have the opportunity, and I would say responsibility, to make sure that this new version of yourself, of your business, actually aligns with how you want to practice and how you want to live your life, right? What's the point of leaving a very broken system only to remain broken in this new model? That would be kind of silly. So I'm trying to help you here so that you can help yourself to realize that, yeah, you have got to really hone in on your skill set, the area in which we are calling the working genius. So now let's get into, how do you figure out which one of these might be yours? I've got 4 questions for you to ask yourself, and maybe you can take out a scrap piece of paper or just pencil it in mentally and do the following. Answer these questions. Number 1, what activities leave me feeling energized instead of depleted? Now, let me tell you, I can tell you as you're thinking through this, I am energized when I can help a patient through their medical problem, their foot and ankle medical problem. I need to be really concise here. I specialize in the foot ankle. It's the thing that I love. But the part that makes me depleted, even as a direct care practice, is the charting. The charting is an absolute brain numbing experience for me. And even though I see less patients in volume, I still got to write those notes. And I actually wait and stack them up by the end of the week, by the end of the month. And last year I think I was behind like 6 months in taking my notes. And so we're not proud of that. But, those are the things I have to do, right? I get that. But now that we've got AI, I could probably implement something a little bit more simple so that becomes less painful. But that's kind of down the road decisions for me. I've got a lot of decisions to make. So again, what leaves you energized? What leaves you depleted? Sometimes you just got to decide if something is sucking your soul. How can you navigate that? You have to think creatively to solve that problem. Now, the second question is, what comes so naturally to me that I don't even realize it's valuable? What comes naturally to you? What comes naturally to you might be creating something or talking to somebody about something, right? Or just maybe it's your specialty. Maybe you truly love medicine. You just hate the stuff around it. So write it all out. What is natural to you that maybe you've even said, I don't want to charge for this because I love doing this, right? And I can talk to people all day about their foot problem or about their business problems. And all of that is fun for me because I can easily sort out and pinpoint what the barriers are. And for me, that's fun. And often I do that without getting paid. So I love that. I love that work. Question number 3, what compliments or feedback do you consistently receive from others? You'd be surprised with how much other people know about you compared to you. And I say that because I didn't decide on having my business until I had no choice. I was employed until I wasn't. And I was like, there's really no other job opportunities out here. Again, I only knew how to be an employee, but I didn't want to leave the city. I didn't want to leave my daughter. I didn't want to leave my husband. The next best thing was to create a practice made exactly for me. And so I did. And I figured stuff out, and here I am sharing that with you. And I had a friend who said, well, yeah, I knew you were going to do that all this time. And this was a friend from high school who I only knew like when we went out to dinner once in a while. This was like 20 years after the fact. And she goes, oh, yeah, as soon as I heard you open your own practice, it was just in alignment. I knew that that was meant for you. And I was kind of surprised because I didn't know that myself. But I guess if I really looked at things with a objective point of view, then perhaps it was very obvious all along that I was deeply unemployable. And now I embrace that. All right. So now the fourth question is, where do I lose track of time when working? What kind of work are you doing in which you lose track of time? I know for me, when I was in high school, I could spend endless hours scrapbooking, putting stuff together, cutting out magazine pieces, and just creating something, enjoying the process without actually doing anything with the end result. I wasn't selling it. I wasn't showing it off. There was no social media at the time. It was just the work that I enjoyed. And then I would find myself at 4 o'clock in the morning, just busy doing scrapbooking, right? And it was just a really fun exercise for me. I hope that this topic really brings to light as to what your working genius is so that you can create better results for your patients when you're energized, not depleted. So another example is if you have your clinical practice and you're doing a certain kind of work or you're trying to solve for a certain kind of pathology in which you do not love, maybe do less of that. I get that all the time. I have days where, I want to help everybody that shows up, but there are just some pathologies that I don't really think I'm good at. I didn't want to say I don't care about, but like it's not fun for me, right? Or there's just some pathologies where it's like I literally can't do anything about. I cannot fix this problem. No one has been able to fix this problem, but they show up in my office anyway. That's not energizing, which also means I don't advertise for those very unique cases. So you can also design your clinic in a way that is very specific for things that energize you. You don't have to see all pathologies that show up. You can select for the thing that energizes you. Ultimately, the reason to understand what your working genius is to avoid burnout and resentment. And I think we've done enough of that in corporate medicine. We don't need to carry that through in our direct care practice. What's most magical about having space and time to think about what you love and enjoy is that you end up attracting other opportunities that align with your strengths. So once you stop lying to yourself that you can do everything and you focus on the things that you love, things are going to be drawn towards you that aligns with the things you love, with your strengths. And therefore, you can eventually choose to, if you wanted to build a scalable, joyful practice because now you're operating from your deepest values. So if you're an action taker, I absolutely appreciate that. I'm going to give you 2 things to do. Spend 15 minutes today and write out the 3 tasks that you love, that gives you joy, that you can do more of, and maybe decide that you will do more of that. But you're going to have to let go of some of the things that are draining you in order to make space for that. So then make a list of the 3 things that drain you and find a way to outsource that. It could be something in your business. It could be something in your home life. For a period of time, I hated cooking. It would annoy me that I would have to cook 3 different meals, or I made a meal for the family and everyone decided to eat something else and they made their own meal. So I was like, what was the point of all that? And so I went through a time where I ordered food and whatever was delivered is what we were eating because I was too drained to decide on what to buy at the grocery store, what to put together on the dinner table. dealing with people not liking what I made, whatever it was, right? And I just took that out of the equation, paid a service to have food delivered to me, and that was it. And it was great for a short period of time until we all got sick of it. So sometimes you just got to explore and figure stuff out, right? But at least it puts you in a position to take action and decide what kind of life you want to have. Do you want to have one that you're fully resentful of or one that is joyful? And I truly hope you're choosing a joyful one. So in short, the more you practice inside of your genius, the more medicine feels meaningful again. And that's exactly what the future holds for direct care. Thank you so much for being here with me. I'll catch you next week. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a review and share it with a friend so more doctors can learn about direct care. Let's keep the conversation going on LinkedIn so we can help more doctors escape insurance and thrive in private practice. Thanks for listening. I'll talk with you next time. Take care.